But by far the biggest drain on your battery and hence your range while cold is switching on the heating, which is kind of required when you're driving somewhere in the cold, am I right? So why does cold weather do that to an EV? That's what we'll be looking at today. We'll cover a little bit about battery chemistry and what the cold does to it, and then we'll move on to cover tips and tricks for extending your range in an EV in the cold. Time for a little science. A battery basically consists of three different parts. There's the anode and the cathode, which are the positive and negative terminals, and the electrolyte, which is the bit that sits between the two. Now, electrons pass from one terminal to another via the electrolyte. Usually the anode and cathode are made of something nice and solid, such as carbon or iron or manganese and cobalt, but the electrolyte is a soup of chemicals which is almost literally liquid. And we all know what happens to liquids when they get cold. That's right, they freeze. Now, the chemistry behind that is somewhat more complicated than I've said here. If you want a more detailed discussion, then call on battery electrochemist Dr. Ewan McTurt next time you see him and ask him about it, and you'll get chapter and verse on it. But basically, one of the issues with cold is that it makes the electrolyte hard to pass the electrons through, and this reduces your power, which reduces your efficiency, which reduces your range. And it's a simple link between the three. So how do you stop this happening? Well, the short answer is to warm the battery. And the easiest way to do that is to precondition the car by either getting in and switching it on, using the app if you've got one, or letting the inbuilt timer warm the car, depending on which option your vehicle has. Now, this sucks energy from the battery and it starts the process of warming it up. It won't heat it up a lot, but it will do enough to offset some of the impact of the cold weather. Now, some vehicles, such as the Teslas and some of the newer Kias, have a battery precondition function. This specifically warms the battery up. Ostensibly, it sets it up for maximum charge speed, but it warms the battery as a result, which achieves the desired effect. Another way to warm the battery is to actually charge it, especially if you can rapid charge it at a high kilowatt rate. This heats up the battery, it gets the electrolyte moving, so plug it into a nearby charger for a few moments and enjoy what happens to your range. Now, the third way to heat it up is to actually drive it. Now, I did a journey recently in my Polestar 2, leaving home with a temperature around -3 Celsius, which is 28 Fahrenheit. And as I left, the range of the car was about 160 miles with the state of charge I had. Now, I wasn't at 100%, nowhere near. And the efficiency was showing up at around 1.8 miles per kilowatt hour. Now, as I drove it and the battery warmed, the efficiency started to increase, and within about 5 miles, it was up to 3 miles per kilowatt hour. The range was still around 160 miles, even though I'd driven some distance. But by far the biggest drain on your battery, and hence your range while cold, is switching on the heating, which is kind of required when you're driving somewhere in the cold, am I right? But why is that? I mean, it doesn't drain the range in an internal combustion engine car. What is it about an EV that causes cold weather heating to be an issue?